If you're considering a career in medicine, this show is for you. I'm going to be talking to a variety of healthcare professionals who are going to share the reality of what it takes to have a successful career in medicine. The good, the bad, the inspiring, the funny. My name is Michelle Neske. I'm a physician assistant and your host, about to bring you Beyond the Scope. If you've done research into applying to physician assistant school, you know how crazy it is with all the different requirements, programs out there, and how do you choose which one is best for you? Well, luckily, two of my friends and PAs created an amazing platform that you can do this all in one place called My PA Box. Research schools by state, track your hours, look up all the requirements, literally in one spot at mypabox.com. You can also use their PA school match to enter in all your demographic information, your GPA, whether or not you took the GRE or PA CAT, and filter for schools that would be the best fit for you. You guys, this has been game-changing for pre-PAs, and I use it all the time with my clients. You can go ahead and get a 1-year subscription. And because you're listening to this podcast, if you use POSHPA15, you can get 15% off your 1-year subscription. You will not regret this. If you are a pre-PA, it will sort things out so much for you and just make it easier to do the research on the programs that are the best fit for you. So check them out, mypabox.com. Okay, everybody, I'm so excited to have Camille here today. Hi, Camille.
Hello, everyone. Thank you
Camille
for having
is
me,
in
Michelle.
Canada. Where are you?
I'm in a town called Vernon in
Okay.
British Columbia, and
Nice.
it's gorgeous. Yes.
That's amazing. So, so you guys know from the introduction that Camille is a non-traditional student and a pre-med, and she has such an interesting story that we connected over social media after she heard me on another podcast, the Influencer podcast, right?
That's right.
And so we just thought we had a lot in common and connected right away. And so Camille is definitely a non-traditional student, a career changer from a formerly successful career as a creative director, right?
That's right. Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about that.
I loved my job. It was awesome. I love the people that I worked with. And I started working weekends actually as a veterinary assistant. I've always loved animals. It sounded like fun. And I fell in love with medicine there. I realized maybe veterinary medicine wasn't my particular path, but I fell in love with medicine, and the urge became undeniable that I needed to act on this drive. And the stars aligned with my husband. He was just so supportive of me, and I made it happen. I decided to go back to school, and I was 25. I believe I was 25 at the time. And to be honest, it was awful. It was so bad. Oh my goodness. I was so naive in thinking that my life experience alone would carry me to great grades.
Yeah.
That is not the case. I definitely felt a little bit of imposter syndrome going back to school. And I didn't have the study skills that I needed to do well in these classes. So I essentially wasted the first maybe 2 years of my undergrad. I was overstudying like crazy around the clock and just barely keeping up with the class average. If you can picture when my husband and I would go to the grocery store, I would have him drive and I would sit in the passenger seat with like my calculus textbook. And you can imagine the productivity level of that quote unquote study session was non-existent. So it wasn't until we had our son, it was just a few days after my last exam in the second year, and I knew something had to change. There's no way any medical school would accept me or even want to look at my application unless I made a significant change in how I approached my education.
Yeah.
So I invested in myself. I took a ton of study courses. I became obsessed with learning about what it takes to become a really great student.
Mhm.
and I did some personal work, some coaching, and it changed the game for me. I went from a 2.3 GPA to a 4.1. And that
Wow.
4.1 I manage with now a toddler.
Yeah.
We sold our house, built a house, volunteering, doing all that fun pre-med,
That's
pre-PA, all that.
insane. Oh
Yeah,
my gosh.
and being a responsible adult, and you know what? It's totally doable. You
Yeah.
have to be so intentional with your time.
Yeah.
And for me, the biggest shift was mindset.
Mhm.
Because when I sat down for classes, I had all this evidence in front of me to say I was a bad student.
Mhm.
In reality, I needed to accept that I had really mastered a very specific way of
Mhm.
learning. And these are the results that technique, that handful of techniques yielded.
Yes.
Now it's time to shift and try something new and see and just get curious about what the results can be if I shift. So now, while I'm waiting for these application cycles to run their course, I've been coaching other students and I offer a course where I essentially share everything I've learned.
Wow.
And I've hired some fantastic, incredible experts that share their wealth of knowledge as well. Because I know if you are a student who is stressed out about money, whether or not you're going to be able to maintain your scholarships,
Mhm.
if you are stressed about all the other things going on in life outside of the classroom, that's going to be reflected in your grades.
Yes.
So I coach students from everything from mindset and time optimization to how to finance your education and the practical study skills. And then the last piece is maintaining that consistency once the novelty of the new semester has worn off.
Right. So let's
Mm-hmm.
go back a little bit. So that is just unbelievable. Number one, what you've been able to do. So before you were a creative director, had you gone to college or no? This was their first time doing undergrad?
I had taken a diploma program
Okay.
in web development and design, and it was nothing short of a miracle that I even passed high school. I took I did the bare minimum, and I ended up taking there was a program at my school where I was able to be a auto body mechanic apprentice,
Okay.
and I did that. I helped fix cars in exchange for high school credits. So
Oh
that's how
my
I graduated high school. So you can
That's amazing.
imagine, I feel like some of my high school teachers must have like just were like, just get her out of here, because I look at my high school transcripts and some of the grades are like exactly 50% for
Wow.
whatever is needed to pass. So
So at
thank you
25,
to them.
so basically at 25 years old, you're starting undergrad.
Yes.
And
Yes.
you're thinking, "Okay, I have to take all the heavy sciences," right? Because 'Cause you're
Mhm.
pre-med. So
Mhm.
bios and chemistries and all of that, and having that experience from high school, you're probably like, "Oh, here we
Mhm.
go," but, like, I'm not the best student. And I think what you said is so important, like, you and I think a lot of students that I work with and a lot of students out there can identify with that transition, no matter where you are in your life, to go from, one thing into undergrad into some of these courses that are required, but, you know, very difficult, whether intentionally or unintentionally. And the struggle is real. Like those
Mhm.
first couple of semesters, it happened to me, it happens to a lot of people. And you wind up like thinking, what did I do? Like, there's no way I can do this. I'm putting in all this effort and I'm not getting the grades that I want or need. Like, what do I do? What do I do about this? And what you said was really awesome in the fact that, like, you mastered a study skill that wasn't working for you. Like,
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
and so you have to. So, did you try different things or and do you use a lot of different types of things to study now? Or what kind of did you find out in that evolution?
Yeah, absolutely. I tried a little bit of everything. I found that many different study courses were, whether intentional or not, targeted a very specific type of learner.
Mhm.
Those with it felt like a lot of the study courses that I took were made for students who had nothing but time on their hands
Mm-hmm.
and learned a very specific way. I couldn't relate to that. So I tried a little bit of everything, and I figured out what markers are looking for,
Mm-hmm.
what graders are looking for. I learned how I study.
Mm-hmm.
I learned how to study quickly. I taught myself how to speed read, which was a huge game changer, and to be able to still retain that content.
Mm-hmm.
And now I get to share that wealth of knowledge. And what
Yeah.
I like to do with my students, I give them absolutely every tool in the book. And we
Mm-hmm.
say, okay, this is your list of tools. You don't have to use them. I find this particular technique works really well with this type of textbook or this type of
Okay.
content,
Mm-hmm.
this type of essay question, this type of multiple choice question.
Mm-hmm.
I get very specific, and that way people have the resources to then apply it however works for them.
Yes, that's
Mm-hmm.
amazing. And then, obviously I talk a lot about mindset too, and
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
trying to be in that more positive space when you're going through, the PA school application process or the med school application process, or if you're a student. So, but clearly you did both things. So it's the mindset work and the study habits. Cause I get asked this a lot too. And it's like, I'm struggling, how can I make this better? And
Mm-hmm.
I think that starts between the ears, unfortunately. And so what kind of things did you listen to? Like what were some of your I know I listened to a lot of books and, podcasts and things like that. So what kind of did you do to get through that?
Excellent question. And you're absolutely right. Your internal dialogue is the most powerful tool that you can use to change immediately.
Yeah.
So, yes, I listened to a ton of podcasts, a ton of audiobooks. What really benefited me directly was investing on some one on one coaching.
Okay.
And that's when I started really paying attention to what that internal dialogue was telling me. Because when I sat down, it wasn't just that I thought, oh my gosh, physics is the worst, OChem's the worst, biochem's the worst. It was, I am not smart enough to do
Mm.
blank. Or I would look at the evidence and say, I was giving it my all in this case, and this is how shitty this my
Yeah.
grade for that class was. The biggest mindset shift that I got out of that I started using immediately was asking myself, is it possible
Hmm.
that I do better on the next midterm? Is it
Okay.
possible that I ace this next one? Is it
Hmm.
possible that I can read the next sentence and understand it? Yes.
Okay.
That shift gave me the leverage to then start working forward and really
Yeah.
shifting that that inner dialogue.
That's so meaningful and impactful because I think sometimes people are looking for this aha moment when really it's small changes in your everyday that eventually amount to large impactful change. And
Absolutely.
that so one of the first books I had read was The Compound Effect by
Mm,
Darren Hardy, and that is
mhm,
exactly what it's about. It's about small changes every day, so that small mindset change, like, is it possible for me to read this and actually get it? Is
mhm,
it possible? Yes, it's possible. Because I know I did this and I know a lot of other students do this where they're just like, well, I'm terrible at chemistry. So I
mhm,
don't want to take this. And
mhm,
I said, well, yeah, I mean, I get that. I also feel I'm not good at chemistry, but
mhm.
maybe it's something that needs to just be changed in the way you study for chemistry, or for that class or for that book. And that seems like where you're really helping, students to do that.
Absolutely. Because at the end of the day, you can, anyone can share all the techniques, all the study hacks in the world. But if you're not confident in your ability to use them or to apply them or to change that internal, make that shift saying that I'm bad at chemistry or I'm good at chemistry, it doesn't matter. You
Right.
have to start with that inner confidence and slowly, just as you mentioned, it's those small everyday shifts
Yeah.
and practicing that.
So where are you on your pre-med journey right now?
I am waiting for the next application cycle. I did
Okay.
not get in this last year.
Okay.
And unfortunately, the reason why that is because those first 2 years, I'm still paying for those. The school didn't even want to look at anybody who didn't maintain, I believe it was an 88% average throughout their undergrad.
Wow.
So and I only apply for the one. I am
Okay.
a non-traditional student. I've got my dream home on a beautiful acreage in a forest, and this is where our support system is. This is where our
Hmm.
little guy is. I am set on serving my community here. So I'm more than happy to wait another year, another 2 years, whatever. The time will go by either way. I am loving helping other students in the meantime,
Yeah.
and I am perfectly happy waiting for
So are
the
you
time being.
taking more classes now, or you have to take other classes, or how does
I
that work?
am, and you know what I'm doing? I'm going back now and retaking those classes that I did so brilliant and I was so happy. Classes that I had previously gotten like a C on
Yeah.
before, I came out with a 97
Wow.
this last round. And
That's got to be so like, oh, like,
uh, you know, it's so, and I don't say that, I hope it doesn't come off as braggy. What I want
no.
to show people is that it's possible.
Right.
With the right support, with the right mindset, with the right tools, you can do whatever you want.
Yes.
Even
Yeah.
if it's just pass the next test, you can do it. And you
Yeah.
don't have to do it alone.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just um the life experience that I gained over that time. It was working on those skills. And yes, your mindset is a skill that
Yes.
made that difference.
Right. And I think you said a couple of things that is interesting is that um one, you are sort of limited because you want to stay in your space.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I also work with a lot of students who are moms or have, military families or have ties to some place that they really need to be, or maybe they just really want to be. And
Mhm.
so they are limited to their program choices and, are like, well, I'll never get in there because this is what it requires. But again, I think, you know, there is also something about being very intentional about where you want to apply. And so you will get there by doing what you need to do to meet the requirement. And then, you just really make them understand like this is why this is the best place for you. And I have no doubt that you will get there. But also seeing that you can perform well in something that you previously did not has to be so gratifying in so many ways. And also setting you up for success when you do get into medical school, right? Because that content and that stuff is going to be even more challenging. So
Mhm.
that's got to give you some confidence too, going into that.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And it is so powerful because now I get to share that knowledge and tutor other students in the class who are struggling. And I can serve more of a leadership role. Going back to your point about sticking to the one school, I just recently had a fantastic phone conversation with us. She was introduced to me by one of my mentors as the top student in her program. That's at the school that I'm applying for. It
Yeah.
took her 5 years
Oh,
to get
wow.
in.
Yeah.
And you know what? She is an all the better. She's going to be all the better for it. Her
Yeah.
patients are going to be benefiting from
Mhm.
that experience, from her hard work, from her effort, and her persistence.
I agree. And that's,
Mhm.
for PA school too, and anybody that's, listening is that sometimes it's not meant to be, the first time. And I also have worked with students that have applied 3 or 4 times.
Mhm.
But I've also worked with students as PA students that was their third time, as a preceptor or
Mhm.
whatever. And those people, like nothing can stop them because
Absolutely.
they're just like, okay, yeah, I didn't know that, but I'll know it now. And here's how I'm going to
Yeah.
learn it. And here's that because that's what they've built, that resiliency, that strength, that knowledge in themselves that they can accomplish what they need to. And so, if you're somebody out there that maybe didn't get in the first time, you know, use that as fuel,
Mhm.
for going. going
can I
forward.
share with you a story
Yeah.
about being rejected? Please, for those of you who do not get in, give yourself the time to grieve
Hmm.
because yes, you will get in. If this is what you're meant to do, you will get in eventually. It still sucks.
Yeah.
It's okay to sit with that discomfort. My beautiful mother-in-law is one of the sweetest human beings that has ever graced this planet, in my opinion. She was so confident that I was going to get in this year.
Mhm.
She had taken knitting lessons and was knitting me study socks, socks that I could wear when I was in med school, and she was just so proud. And when I didn't get in, oh my goodness, I feel like she cried more than I did. It
Yeah.
was so heartbreaking. But you know what? One day I'm gonna wear the heck out of those study socks.
Yeah, you will. But I think
Plus,
that's a good point. Like, because like any disappointment, you
mm-hmm,
have to go through that process.
mm-hmm,
Like, because if you don't go through it, like it is a grieving process. It is like about first being angry, right? It is,
mm-hmm,
it's okay to be angry. Like,
mm-hmm.
it's okay to be like, you know, down on yourself. Like, it's okay to say, I'm not good enough, but you can't let that live,
No,
right? So you sort of have to go through the stages of grief, like in a
yes,
way that you finally get to this point that you've accepted the fact that this was not, the right timing. This was not the best application. This was not, you know, getting to the point where you can say, I'm now inspired by this. And that
mm-hmm,
takes work. Like, it takes
yes.
personal work, it takes mindset work, it takes all of that. But I agree with you 100%. Like, if you don't ever let yourself feel that, you'll never get to that point.
Yeah. And then the key is to then use that as fuel,
Right.
to use that as drive to make the next application 10 times better.
And I think what you're doing, Camille, is applicable to any student, like
Absolutely.
undergrad, non-traditional, because learning study habits that work for you is the most important thing that you can do when either one, you're struggling academically, or two, you found yourself in a situation where you feel like, I don't think I can do this. Right. Like, and that's
Absolutely.
because, and a lot of students feel like that in PA school when they start too. Like, they're just like, oh my God, what have I done? Like,
Mhm.
you know what I mean? So I think this actually applies to so many different students
Mhm.
out there.
Absolutely. And I see that especially in students that are transitioning out of high school and their first year of university. And they may have been one of the top students at their small school at the time.
Mhm.
And now they get their first test back and they realize, oh, shoot, the class averages are like 60. And I did not get that the first time. And that's hard
Mhm.
to realize that it's time to pivot.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So, all right. So let's say I am, because this is kind of true what happened to me, right? So I graduated high school, pretty much did very well in high school. I did the work. Like, I worked hard, but it wasn't that hard. Like, I kind of
Mhm.
did it, and I was like, woo, like, graduated, top 5 in the class.
Ooh, good
And
for you.
I go to college, and I'm basically like this exact scenario that you just had. So I'm in a big lecture hall with 300 students trying to learn chemistry, basic chemistry, and from a man who's lecturing, or a woman who's lecturing, it was man, and then this gigantic textbook, and then just having very like little direction on what I actually need to know.
Mhm.
So, what would you tell a student like that that's like, okay, the materials are lecture materials and like book materials. What I'm doing is not working. Like, so what I did in high school, like highlight, study it, like kind of memorize it, then like kind of move on, isn't working. What would you tell somebody like me?
The first thing is to open a beautiful, full, figurative study toolbox. Your biggest resource is your professor. They have office hours
Mhm.
for a reason. Go and use them.
Okay.
Your TAs are there for a reason. Go and use them. ask if you can look at previous tests from previous years and really understand, get to know how your specific professor tests, what they're looking for when they're marking the material, and talk to your peers. Go
Yeah.
on Facebook. There's Facebook groups for just about everything now.
Mm-hmm.
Go in, ask for support. There's private tutoring if you're interested. But really, the biggest feedback that you're going to want to use is what that professor is looking for. Because now, when you sit down, you can put together a list of what you want your main takeaways from this particular study session. So, reading every textbook page, word for word, every single letter, you're probably wasting your time when really they're only testing specific high yield bits of content, maybe bonus points for some of the additional stuff, but you have to master the foundationals, especially in the earlier level courses. It's pretty predictable once you kind of notice the patterns on what they're going to be testing for. So once you have the data, okay, I know that there's going to be this type of question. I know that I'm going to have to be able to draw these particular models. I know I'm going to have to be able to answer at least 5 multiple choice questions. And then as you're reading the content, now that you have a plan, and I recommend that students have their own list of questions that they just, out of own pure curiosity, what you want to get out of it. Once you have that plan, you can now approach and read one section at a time, or just look at the headings and think, oh, this content looks really high yield. How would I use this paragraph, this section, whatever? How would I word this as a multiple choice question?
Oh,
How
okay.
would I pose this as an essay question? Once you start testing yourself as you're studying, you you're actually able to understand the content. And many others people have said this before. The next step is to go and teach that content. I
Right.
mean,
Yeah.
I teach my cat and my dog almost all of my content. Go
They're
ahead,
so smart.
ask my cat anything about biochem. She knows the answer. Um, go in, because now you have to be able to put it into your own words.
Yeah.
And something else that I know, sorry, I'm throwing a lot of
No,
information
this is
at
great. I
people.
love it.
Okay. You know how to the key, regardless of what technique you use for taking notes, the best, most powerful thing you can do with those notes?
No.
Read them.
Out
Actually
loud.
review them. Like, look at them again. I see. It blows my mind how many students I see with like beautiful, like 12 different color pens here and highlighters. And they are like, just their paper might as well, it should just be on fire. They're writing so fast, trying to keep up with the lecturer, and then never touch their notebook ever again.
Yeah.
Never crack it open, never review. You're wasting your time. Those beautiful pens, you just frame them, because you're wasting your time.
Yeah.
So
That's actually really funny. When I was in PA school, like there were definitely those people. And
yeah,
I am still this type of person. Like, and I'm a very visual learner. I'm a very kinesthetic learner. I
love it.
do better if I see it and hear it and feel it. Like I do better.
Mhm.
And so I'm still this way. Like I never write anything down. And it annoys people like to death, but that's just not the type of learner that I am. Do you know what I
Mhm.
mean? And I think that's important too. Like you have to understand what is going to work for you. And I'm like, why can I remember song lyrics the first time after I hear the song?
Yes.
Like literally I can hear a song once. Next time I'm singing the lyrics. It's because that's just a way that I learn. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like that's just a way that works for me. Whereas other people, and that's why I think, in retrospect, some of those classes were hard for me, was because it was very like more, I tried to study more like, somebody who took notes and just reviewed them. You know what I mean? And
Mhm.
so
Mhm.
in retrospect, I didn't know that about myself, and, maybe could have figured out some ways that would work. But I love that you talking about, oh, how could this be addressed as a question? Because that right there, you're like, I'm basically creating the test in my mind, right?
Exactly.
That's
Yeah.
cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Absolutely.
So tell us about your course. What's the name of it? What's the intention of it? And you launched, right?
Yes, I
Yes, it's
did.
available. So let's talk about it.
Okay, so the non-trad accelerator
Mhm.
is tailored for students who have something going on in their life outside the classroom, some kind of major priority, whether it's just being a decent adult who's trying to, stay fit, or maybe you're a parent, caretaker, you're working a part-time job,
Mhm.
you're volunteering on the side, whatever. This is the course I wish I had when I first went back to school.
Okay.
We cover everything from mindset and time optimization, how to finance your education, even if you don't have the perfect GPA and don't have scholarships, because I don't care how smart you are. If you are stressed about
Mhm.
that kind of thing, that's going to show up in your grades. I study, or sorry, the course also includes very practical study skills. I
Mhm.
give you absolutely everything, take what you like, leave the rest. And then there's the consistency piece.
Okay.
And with that course comes a biweekly coaching program where you bring up all of your questions during, we discuss what's working, what's not, celebrate your wins, cry with you when, when the test didn't go well, because you know what? You can have all the support in the world, but we're all going to have those off days where you were late to a midterm because your car broke down and whatnot. So in that time optimization piece, we also talk about preparing yourself for the inevitable
Mhm.
obstacles that are going to come up. That makes things 1,000 times easier. And you don't have to do any of this alone. That's why the coaching component is there. And we have created the most supportive community I have seen yet. It is so fulfilling to be a part of.
That's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Yeah.
think it's just something I know just from the, more non-traditional students I work with that they would really benefit from because um, there will be inevitable obstacles.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
Yeah.
And it just will be whether you're a parent, whether you're a caregiver, whether you're working full time and trying to take classes while you work and gain experience and do all these things, like inevitably something will happen.
Yeah.
And how do you pivot from that without feeling like you've failed yourself, and failed the test and, all of that kind of stuff. So I think that's so valuable and so important. So where can people find more information?
The best place is on the program website. It's nontradaccelerator.com. And I will be offering listeners of the podcast a special discount. At checkout, you can use the code POSHPA. You'll get a special discount there. There's also a payment plan. My goal is that students will be able to use the information to pay for this course time and time and time again, with the
Mhm.
amount of scholarships that they're going to get, with the amount of money that they're going to save. This is a no-brainer.
Yeah.
So again, that's nontradaccelerator.com. If you
Mhm.
have any questions, there's you can always reach out to me on Instagram. My handle's at the Learning Mom, and I'm always available to support you, whether you join in the course or not. It is such a supportive and fun community, and we would love to see you there.
I love this. I can't wait for people to hear this. I think it's going to be so beneficial for really any student, on any track to change their career or to even just take their, education to the next level. And I love that I'm going to be able to share this with my audience and students
Mhm.
that I work with. And again, just thank you so much for being here. Thank you for sharing these awesome sort of, just tidbits of advice and also, just letting other students know that like you are not alone in this. Like if you went back to school and you have a 2.3, you can change that.
Absolutely.
You can change that.
Absolutely.
Your GPA doesn't define who you are, you do. And how can you do better? How can you turn things around for yourself by having the right study tools, knowing what works for you, having a community. I think that's everything they're getting from the non-traditional accelerator. So I hope you all go and check it out. Definitely follow Camille on Instagram. That's where we met. And I just really appreciate all the advice you've given here today, sharing your story. And we'll have you back when you get accepted.
Yes, absolutely.
In your socks.
Oh, I'm not going to take them off. It'll be disgusting. I'll share with you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you being here.
Thank you, Michelle.
Thanks.